Police have, as you said, just this year in 2011, received $500 million in surplus military weaponry from the Pentagon, which is authorized through the Pentagon's 1033 program. During the late 70s, Congress passed legislation called Posse Comitatus, barring the military from operating on American soil. And in the early 80s, there was an effort to circumvent that in Congress by arming police with military-grade weaponry. And now we're seeing that play out in the streets. People in the inner city in the U.S. have been experiencing this since the 80s, and now middle-class Americans in the Occupy movement are facing not only pepper spray, but things like the LRAD sound cannon, the long-range acoustic device, which can blast your cranium with 140 decibels, shaking your skull so hard even earplugs won't stop it. And as I reported for Al Akhbar English, this weapon has been tested on Palestinians in the occupied West Bank by the Israeli army. So civilians in the U.S. are now up against basically military-style policing.
It sounds like you are calling this a militarization of the police force.
The Army's a broadsword, not a scalpel. Trust me, Senator, you do not want the Army in an American city.
A pretty scary scene along the Chicago River turns out to be a military training exercise. Good evening, everyone. I'm Robin Robinson.
And I'm Bob Surratt. Thank you for joining us. Our viewers called in describing men with automatic weapons hanging out of helicopters.
You know what, there was a bland press release in early afternoon from City Hall that referred to, quote, a routine military training exercise. Well, there was nothing routine that folks reported about seeing the jarring, as they witnessed the jarring scene of at least 3 Black Hawk helicopters flying at times in close order formation, at other times separating fairly widely, zooming in and around residential office towers. We talked to several of those who were still a little bit shaken up by what they had seen.
And they were lower than my building in between the towers, so that did make me slightly paranoid. I text my husband, who's in the military, or was in the military, asking if this was alarming because I could see what color of clothing they were wearing. It was frightening. I was definitely alarmed.
I was pretty amazed because they were definitely military and there were definitely guys with machine guns. So I thought that perhaps there was some alarm or concern.
And again, various spokesmen and spokeswomen for several city agencies, including the NATO Summit Host Committee, insist this has nothing at all to do with next month's NATO Summit. Bob, I've got to tell you that some of the folks downtown here are not buying that at all, nor are they buying that phrase that was featured in the press release, quote, a routine military training exercise.
Elsewhere tonight, CBS 2 has learned there may be a secret plan to evacuate Chicago in case of big trouble at the NATO summit next month. The Red Cross in Milwaukee is apparently reaching out to volunteers to help prepare shelters for any Chicagoans who are suddenly relocated. CBS 2's Mike Parker uncovered the story.
CBS 2 News has obtained a copy of Milwaukee area Red Cross emails sent out to volunteers. The message suggests a possible plan to evacuate residents of the city of Chicago during the NATO summit. The conference, the email says, may create unrest or another national security incident. The American Red Cross in southeastern Wisconsin has been asked to place a number of shelters on standby in the event of evacuation from Chicago. That surprise disclosure has some folks who live downtown on edge. A little unnerving?
Very unnerving. I feel a little bit unsafe. Just a little bit, maybe a little bit more than a little bit. Doesn't make me feel like I want to be in the city during the NATO conference.
I'm lost for words because I absolutely have no idea what that entails.
According to a Wisconsin Red Cross spokesperson, the evacuation plan is not theirs alone. She told us, Our direction has come from the city of Chicago and the Secret Service. However, officials at the Office of Emergency Management and Communication told us tonight the directive did not come from them. The Secret Service did not return our phone calls. The Chicago Red Cross office said only, "We are supporting the city in their NATO plan."
Under the cover of night,
all of a sudden they just appeared out of nowhere,
lacing their way between buildings.
They were weaving in and out of over by the Custom House, all through the north end.
A squadron of military helicopters descended on Boston.
We saw like the giant Black Hawk kind of screaming 20 yards above our street.
The joint federal military training exercise threw many in the North End into a panic.
My husband wasn't home, so I locked the door thinking, what if they're chasing someone right now?
A bunch of people out on the street, like no one really knew what was happening, so everyone was like kind of anxious and nervous.
The mayor says there were alerts that the urban training exercise would be taking place in and around Boston between July 26th and August 5th, but everyone we talked to had no idea.
I apologize for that, but my job as mayor is to make this the safest city in America, and the Navy SEALs are part of that operation.
At one point, a glowing object was seen dropped from a helicopter. It was just one of many mysteries families in Boston were left wondering about.
We saw just the one helicopter at first. Then we saw another one flying around, no idea what was going on, landing on top of the building. So, yeah, myself and my fiance were really pretty freaked out.
The mayor's office says that this type of training, this military training, is necessary so that crews can be ready for an urban setting, for those who might be deployed overseas, and for the mandatory training certification that everyone needs to go through. And you can expect this training to continue through tomorrow night. Live in Charlestown, Susan Trent, 7 News 19.
We begin with a story that you'll only see on 9 tonight. The LAPD and elite military units conducted extraordinary counterterrorism training in the skies above downtown LA tonight, and Sky 9 was there to see it all.
Dive, 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 dive.
Military maneuvers by Special Operation Forces in full swing over the skies of Los Angeles. Our cameras were there when a Black Hawk helicopter and 4 OH-6s, or Little Birds, flew over the city. Take a look. This is the U.S. Bank building where they hovered for a while before flying to their next target.
1 o'clock, very low.
At one point, they made what appeared to be a drop-off at a park. Within seconds of landing, the helicopter was back in the air.
Oh, this is full push.
Then, while over the Staples Center, while the Lakers played inside, you can see someone on board sitting with his legs hanging off the side of the chopper. While the training is hush-hush, the LAPD, which is assisting the military, says this is routine training with the focus on urban environments. The staging area tonight, Dodger Stadium. Chief Warrant Officer David Duran was a U.S. Army aviator for 12 years. He now flies Black Hawk helicopters for the National Guard in California. He says what we're seeing tonight could be a dry run for a future mission.
They do a lot of mock-up training, but it's always best to get the closest terrain layout to what the objective is, wherever it could be, again, worldwide.
Duran says the military picks environments based on what they might be facing in the near future.
First off tonight, what I call the twilight zoning of America, all part of the corporate world government known as Agenda 21. Russian troops. I've seen troops from Israel, England, Germany, Czech Republic, Latin America, you name it, at urban warfare drills trying to take on the American people. It's in my police state films that I've put out in the last 14 years. But I've never confirmed Russian troops in America. Well, it's confirmed now. It's on Chinese TV and press, Russian and U.S. media. Russian troops training to take on the American people. Absolutely incredible headline, Russian troops to target terrorists in America as part of drill. Joint U.S.-Russian anti-terror exercise stokes fears of martial law. And it goes right through the entire report, all part of acclimating us to this global government. See, you don't ever want to use troops from your own country or the region you're attacking. Back when the Russians would clamp down on Western Russia, they would bring people in from thousands of miles away in Eastern Russia. Or in Tiananmen Square in '89, they bring people from hundreds of miles away from another ethnic group down to suppress people in Beijing. This is how it's done. Going over some of the article, airborne troops from Russia and the United States would hold joint anti-terror drills in the U.S. state of Colorado between the 24th of May and the 31st, reports the major national Chinese news agency, citing Russian Defense Ministry colonel. And it just goes on in the official Russian news agency, and then it's in the Business Insider and other reports. They're going to be training there in the real U.S. capital, Colorado, to take on the American people, and it dovetails with NLE 09, 3 years ago, where troops from 15 foreign nations trained, FEMA admitted, to take on the American people. Why not? Our government's foreign banker run. They're bringing in foreign mercs, like the Brits did the start of our country back in 1776, bringing in the German Hessians. And here's a flashback. Scouts trained to fight terrorists and more. And the article goes on in the New York Times from back in 09 to say the Boy Scouts are training to take on disgruntled veterans and kill them. That's right. Land of the free, home of the brave.
Insider documents recently obtained by InfoWars reveal the current and ongoing operations to staff FEMA and U.S. Army camps inside the U.S. According to our sources, KBR is contracting services for temporary fencing and barricades, along with other services required for temporary emergency environment camps. They're to be located in 5 regions of the United States. Now, this comes immediately after the Senate passed the National Defense Authorization Act, which allows indefinite detention of American citizens. All this at a time when economic conditions and mass demonstrations sweep through the country and threaten potential unrest. The government has patiently put into place the crucial elements of its police state grid and plan for the internment of political enemies. We are literally one false flag terror attack away from the plan going live. As the Department of Homeland Security and establishment media keep telling us, the next terror event will be on American soil and carried out by domestic patriot political groups, not Al-Qaeda. The FBI and the CIA have a long history of creating domestic terrorists, patsies, and shifting the blame over to their political enemies.
It's all there. All the government documents, all the government admissions, a civilian inmate labor camp program run by the Army, where they're at, all the details down to how they're going to break the families up and where the children go and the forced inoculations and everything. I mean, it just boggles the mind that all of this is happening.
The fact that detention camps are being constructed inside our country and are now being staffed and readied for emergency situations, what can no longer be ignored or ridiculed as a conspiracy theory. Senate committee hearings and official Homeland Security documents further illustrate the mindset of our federal government as they classify homeschoolers, gun rights activists, constitutionalists, and returning veterans as potential terrorists. By default, creating an entire nation of radicals and revolutionaries, where everyone is a suspect, equally guilty until proven otherwise.
I am declaring a state of martial law in this city. We intend to seal off this borough, and we intend to squeeze it.
I thought you were against it. This was not my call, so you're just following orders. The president made you put tanks on the Brooklyn Bridge. You're questioning my patriotism. All right, let's roll.
You think I don't know what's going on? I'm doing your job for you, and I damn near get my head blown off.
You expect me to go all weepy with gratitude? I served my country. Why don't you try serving yours?
FBI! He's got a bomb! Code red! Code red! You want what they really want is for us to put soldiers on the street and bend the law, have Americans looking over their shoulders, shred the Constitution just a little bit. We do that, and they've already won.